Hmm. Ooh, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna post this to LinkedIn. Oh, it's logged me out. Just a damn minute. Uno memento. You had one job. Watch, I'm gonna like totally sneeze too in just a second. I actually slept in today. By sleeping in, I mean, what? 8 o'clock. I am also leaving the AC on because it is freakishly hot otherwise. It's like a... Christ, this is an entire frickin' thing. Oh my god, all the throbbers, right? Like all the... Please wait while nothing happens, because it's just an animated GIF. Let's start this in a second. As soon as I can paste this. Rewrite with AI. I can write just fine without AI. Cool. Let me get this off the damn screen. Okay, we're gonna start. We are going to start. Actually, let's go over here. Close you. Let me just like get that up again. I was trying to find this, so the documentation, the generated documentation gets cached. And there was an old like class in here and I'm like, where the hell is that? And I couldn't find it. And so I nuked the cache directory for the documentation, and then I go and I look on the page again and it's still there, and I'm like, what the hell? And I'm like, oh right, it's web cache too. I have to remember. So I was like nuking stuff. Like Intertwingler, like, okay, it started out, it's so full of crud, like it's so full of just like, I mean, I was just looking at this console thing. That's nothing. That's just code that can get deleted because there's nothing there. Yeah, okay. I live in an ambulance route. Anyway. So, probably should have thought about setting this up a little bit better. So today's job is taking this thing, rather making it possible. Like this thing is on a an old prototype, but back in December, I separated the front end from the back end. So now it's sort of free floating, and what I need to do is actually it's in here because the the what's it called is the actual issue is in this issue network. Let's find it. Sorry, my girlfriend's just messaging me something funny. She's at her parents' house. Brendan Coe's currently... Yeah, okay, that's not a problem, but I was... I bet. Just a second. Okay. This is what needs to happen. Create a set of catalog resources. All right. Sorry, I haven't interacted with my girlfriend yet today because she's 2 hours behind because she is at her parents' house. And this is sort of her peak activity moment. Emoji melty guy. There we go. Okay, so create a set of catalog resources, and what I mean by that is this guy. I knew this was going to happen. She was going to start chatting at me. God, okay. Just a few more minutes of this. I'm planning on doing this for like a couple hours. What was I? Duh, everything is just so dull right now. Duplicate tab. That's what we want. We want to duplicate the tab because I want to show you this. And so what this is a these are the catalog resources. Now this is written in Perl. Actually, these are composite. Like if you look at the source, there's nothing there except for these things. And so this is like, it's a catalog of all of the things. If you sponge that, it will work. Like if I go here, let's find a shell. If I say RDF serialize input format God, why can't I think? Okay, input format RDFA, output format turtle URL. Bam, it's got a bunch of stuff in it. And this is the case for everything in this tool. But of course, we need like a backend that's gonna drive it. And what this does, what these do. Let me go back to this. So when you go to add a new thing, hi, this stuff is populated from a data list. So if you go to the inspector, you go here, the main, here's the data list, big freaking list. Let's make this bigger. You can squeeze over there. Like, there's no point in investing any serious resources into this tool because it's so freaking messed. But getting it over Intertwingler, getting the front end rather over to Intertwingler so that it can use Intertwingler's backend is absolutely a useful thing to do, because then I can jettison this freaking monstrosity that's like 10 years old albatross around my neck, and I can go onward, go forward. But yeah, so this data list populates all of the entity members or whatever of the thing. So when I go to this and I go to add a new thing and I'm like, hello, it does the auto population thing. And so that is why we need the catalog resources so that we can do that. And my sort of philosophy when it comes to like first of all, this is all RDF based. So all of the terms and whatever are all URLs because it's RDF. And then what you can afford to do with that is you can do like really interesting stuff with REST. And hang on a second. What is happening here? Okay. Sorry, like I said, girlfriend is in a high activity moment right now. And I kind of knew this was going to happen the second I started streaming, so, but I don't want to tell her to shut up or anything like that. She will eventually go off and do her thing. Like disappear for 6 hours or something, because that's what she does. Okay, so we can actually use this. So actually, let's get over here into the actual code. This, by the way, is garbage. So we'll just open some other thing instead. But I'll make this bigger so you can actually see it. So yes, Intertwingler. So Intertwingler, if you don't know what it is because you haven't been following what I do, Intertwingler is like an application server for what I'm calling dense hypermedia. And what I mean by dense hypermedia is I mean like exactly stuff like this, like stuff where there's a whole crap load of stuff linked together. All the links are typed, all the objects are typed. If it wasn't typed, you wouldn't be able to see, like styling this would have been a freaking nightmare. But since it is typed, and I'll show you what I mean by that. Let's open up this bad boy again. So you can see that there's embedded RDFA. This is an IBIS position. So, where was I? Oh, hey, Julien. Actually, I don't know if is it Québécois or Continental? Julien or Julien? But anyway, so you stick RDFA in the markup, and then you can style it based on the RDFA in the markup. So it does double duty. And if you use Sass, then you can just generate like giant selectors like this. And it's super handy. So like, okay, here's the thing. Blah, look at that. Okay. All of those selectors are, yeah, you can just generate them. If you want to see what that looks like, I'll just jump on that here. Let's use you to find the thing. Come on. Oops. A little laggy. Okay. Asset main 2 SCSS. So you got this. Oh, this is an old one. Oh yeah, because I just did a new one. So if yeah. So the palette data.css. So I have a bunch of like, basically what I do is I've got this honkin' palette. And the palette's got queries of all of the terms. And then I just use like, make that bigger too. I just use this construct of, so okay, where am I here? Okay, so we got all this like, yeah, media screen, okay, blah, blah, some stuff, some macros, whatever. Common, so this is like a macro that's gonna extend to body, like, so this kind of thing, ampersand type of, tilde equals SCOS concept. Oh, I'm probably in the way. This is a, that's my cheat code. The like tilde dot type of or whatever. Tilde equals. God, I can't think right now. I only had 47 coffees. Anyway, so the job, let's go back to this. So that's like with the transforms applied to it too, but if you actually look at the code, the HTML, there's like nothing there, right? Like when you go to this, what is showing on the screen versus what the markup is that you can see. So all this does, and if you look at Intertwingler, Intertwingler's got backlinks in the markup as well. And of course, all the links are typed. And because the links are typed, you can do bastard stuff like this because it's all, yeah, section about in the CSS, blah, blah, property label, etc. So the CSS is being dispatched by the RDFA, which I just think that's clever. Okay, like I'm gonna pat myself on the back for that because holy crap, does it like cut down on the load, on the effort, and you can do sorts of cool stuff like, you know, make this thing dispatch based on this type. Like you can style things based on what they are rather than where they are on the website. I mean, you can just organize stuff based on what it is rather than where it is. Okay, but anyway, I'm writing Ruby. Yeah, it's open source. Yeah. It, well, the tool is Dorian Taylor P5 IBIS. This is the tool that's Perl that's going to go away. It's got a Docker image. This is the new thing. This is Intertwingler. It's written in Ruby. What I'm going to do, where'd that go? Is I'm going to chop this front end off. Like the goal of today's job is to create these index resources to, index, what am I calling them? Catalog resources. To create these catalog resources, because if I have these catalog resources, then I can just chop off the front end of this and put it on this, and it'll just work because it's RDF. It's what you're supposed to. It's like how RDF is supposed to work. So yeah, the problem. So I wrote this down here. Effectively stand in for a handful of useful Sparkle queries, like with inferencing. So a web front end can construct a serviceable interactive user interface without having a lot of machinery written in JavaScript, a lot of which doesn't even exist. Like you would have to go and write a reasoner in JavaScript, and like no, dude. Like that, I mean, maybe some masochist wants to do that, but like if that is what you would have to do to make this work, like first of all, it's going to be way brittle. But second, like those are hard to write. Like if reasoners were not hard, I would have written one already. And the reason why I wrote Intertwingler in Ruby, I was gonna write it in Clojure, except at the time, I would have had to still write a bunch of code to like wrap Jenna, Apache Jenna, because I sure as hell wasn't gonna write it in straight Java. But at the time, it would have been 2017. Like I didn't feel like paying for like a VPS that was big enough to run like a JVM web app. Like I just didn't want to do it. And I guess like a year later in 2018, I had a client who they wanted to like, they were just kind of RDF curious, and their backend, all their stuff was written in Ruby. And so I had an opportunity to take a look at the Ruby libraries for RDF, and it turned out that there was a reasoner in there, and I was like, hot damn, I can just use this. And so, you know, I'm actually still thinking like the real deal, meal deal of Intertwingler, because like Intertwingler is not just going to be one implementation. Like the idea of it is like a protocol. It's like if you made, you know, if you wrote an implementation like that, that implemented the Intertwingler spec or the, you know, pattern or whatever you want to call it, then they can kind of Lego together. Because that's like one of the ideas behind it is that there's kind of like a piece of like a reverse proxy infrastructure, so that like you could write handlers, because like everything in Intertwingler is a handler, and a handler is like basically just like a microservice. Like all it is it's like a you know, whatever, might as well be a CGI script kind of thing, and all it does is respond to a handful of URL, like on a handful of request methods. And they're basically just, and the idea behind the Intertwingler handlers is like they're dumb little pieces of code that are very, very narrowly targeted, and you can just write them and you know, and then plug them in. And the idea that I had there was like, well, you know, wouldn't it be kind of cool if you could write them in multiple languages? Like you could write one, and then they just connect over HTTP, like just as any old reverse proxy would. And that way, yeah, you can kind of like Lego different stacks together if you need to. Like just for example, SAS is now written in Dart, and you know, like I don't want yet another freaking thing, but I could think about like writing an Intertwingler handler that handles a SAS transform in Dart using the bleeding edge SAS, for example. Handlers are not Rack middleware per se, even though Intertwingler does run on top of Rack. They use my own kind of, they bolt on in a way that I had to kind of specify. Although I guess in principle you could use them as Rack middleware, because like Rack middlewares, I'm actually like, let me put it this way, is like I'm like lukewarm about Rack. I think Rack does like it's got most of the brain, but like there's some stuff that it does that I think is kind of silly. So I'm like on the knife edge of like writing my own like sort of HTTP message, and there are other HTTP message libraries out there, but like I gotta say the one in Perl is really nice, like message HTTP, because it is actually like represents an HTTP message. It can parse and serialize, and then it's got like extra things for like hooks for like a request method. Like basically all this stuff would just be like internal to memory of like the web server, is like still what you want in the request. But like Rack has this funny kind of inconsistent, like the request, like the way that you get headers is different in the request and the response, kind of stuff like that. And some of the stuff in the handlers sort of depends on, like, it would be really useful if you didn't have to care about like which one it was, whether it was a request or response, just treat it like a message. And well, I mean, hell, I can go over the architecture. This is, for some reason, the fonts are not showing up, but whatever. I think I have it elsewhere, but it's fine. I'm not going to mess with the font. That should not be that font, but whatever. So yeah, you got your organizational boundary here. You got the user, they make a request, the URI gets pre-processed. So a big part of Intertwingler is the URI resolver. That turns perishable web URLs into some other kind of durable identifier, like a UUID or an RFC 6920 hash address for content addressable storage. Then there's these queues of transforms, and now a transform. So everything is a handler. So you got these handlers here, they're response handlers. Everything in Intertwingler is a handler. Well, except for the stuff that is like the guts, like the resolver and the dispatcher and stuff like that, are obviously not handlers. But the stuff that does the job, like the actual content, are handlers, and you can either treat it as and each of the handlers are what are they called? They're microservices, effectively. They're just things. It's like handful, like, it's N URIs crossed with M, request methods. And then the transforms are a special case of handler. All they are is a microservice that just accepts a post, where the body of the post is the thing that you want transformed. So it's just bytes. So an example of that would be turn this PNG into a JPEG, or whatever. Add backlinks to this HTML file, that kind of thing. And so you've got these very lean little teeny microservices that are delivering content. They get piped through these handlers. And then, of course, if you pipe in, if you're the request method, or not the request method, what am I saying? If the thingy do is if the header, the accept header, or the content type header is message/HTTP, then you can actually like pipe the request or the response, like the entire HTTP message, into the transform. and then you can do things like rewrite URLs, and you can basically, so it's just, and the idea is that, again, handlers are microservices. They connect over HTTP. They can be written in any language. Not yet, but I don't have the actual like reverse proxy infrastructure for that quite yet, but that is like absolutely the plan. Again, like the SAS, writing a SAS handler in Dart or SAS transform in Dart and then plugging it in. All of this configuration for this is all in RDF as well, and then you can configure it hot. So it's hot configurable, so that as long as it can access the resource, as long as it can access the code or knows where to connect to the socket or whatever, you can basically hot configure Intertwingler, which is kind of exciting as well. This basically reduces, like this thing represents, going back as far as 1999, me messing with like the Apache API and doing weird, URL rewriting stuff, doing weird things with, like, it was really kind of mind-blowing to realize in 1999 that, like, oh, a URL doesn't have to correspond to a file. It could just be some code that gets hooked when you run it. Pew! That was in the days of I don't even think PHP was a thing. It was like still server-side includes and CGI scripts and stuff like that. So going all the way back to 99 is like realizing that we can have URLs, like they don't have to correspond to files. But in 2006 I had this idea of like what I called a web substrate, where you would separate the job of like returning content from the job of just like the stuff that didn't have to care about what the content what content was. When Apache 2 came out, there was the filter interface. Is that filter? Is that what it's called? Yeah, it's a filter interface. So there was a filter API, and again, it operated over bytes. And I was like, well, wouldn't it be kind of awesome? Is like, and the funny thing about this is actually FastCGI implements this. You can write FastCGI script. Sorry, FastCGI spec this out. I don't actually know if anybody implements, or like if any adapters implement it, but you could write a FastCGI script that is a filter, in theory, and then like have it in there, and then so you can write like a quick and dirty little FastCGI script. You can jack it into the server, and you can run responses through it. So I think it's just responses. I don't think you can do requests, but yeah. So the idea is like eventually, and by eventually I mean like not even too far into the future, is I want to be able to like chuck. Like these queues are, again, they're RDF, like they're actually defined in an RDF graph. So they are hot configurable. So the request comes in. If the accept type of the transform is like message/HTTP or headers or whatever, then that's what it gets. And then it returns, it's expected to return headers and response. And then you can do things like URL rewriting based on just like a throwaway bash script if you want it. Maybe not bash script, but nah, I don't know. I'm not gonna, don't hold me to that. But certainly, certainly like a, Perl or Python or Ruby or whatever you would be able to do. So yeah, anyway, so what I am going to do, what I've been sitting around for the last half plus hour yammering away about, is these, because again, these, I'm going to make that bigger too. So you can see like these are the classes here these are the instances, rather. There are links to the instances, but they just have the thing on it. What? Not well formed. Hang on a second here. That's weird. Let's try a different one. Is it all of them? Can't resolve query. Oh, you know what? Oh, you know what? That it's just complaining. It's just, but that is super weird, because if that is doing that, because like, okay, brief rant about URL parsers. URLs are regular, like they conform to a regular expression, meaning that everything after, not the colon of the scheme, but like the one that's supposed to go in the authority, like basically after the slash, a colon in the path is perfectly legal. Same like after the first question mark, a question mark doesn't have to be escaped. And the same thing after the first octothorpe hash, whatever. After the first one, subsequent ones, you know, like they are totally legal and they don't have to be escaped. But URL parsers, like some of them, like one in Ruby, for example, is too zealous and it doesn't let you do that. Even though like by the spec it should. Like if you go and you look at RFC 3986, like that, it says that. So we are trying to figure out why. Let's just copy the link and chuck it into the shell. Resolve query. Be interesting to know like where that. By the way, I do all the bastard template generation in XSLT because I'm a psychopath. About, I don't know how many years ago it was, but I made an RDFA query engine. It's not there. Made an RDFA query, can't resolve query transfer. Can't resolve query transfer. Oh. I think I know what the problem is. Yeah. Yeah, so I made this too. It's very strange that it should. So what's the problem? The problem is the relative URL reference is really what it is. It's for some freaking, but that's very weird that line number 1, column 4. Oh, you know what? This is just a distraction. All I was going to do is just try to show the freaking thing, you know, instead, rather than just make a new one that works. Yeah, okay. So, this is the thing about streaming freaking live work is you're like, you get distracted super easily, and the next thing you know, it's like you've been digressing for like half an hour just talking about stuff. Whereas I just sit here in complete silence when I'm just working by myself. So yeah, here are some specific questions the front end would want to ask the back end if it was setting up a user interface. Okay, so yes. So what classes are available to the application? So what RDF classes even are there? Given a class or classes, what properties have it or them as a domain? So what are, like if you think about like let's imagine that I'm going to make like a generic one of these. So like this handles IBIS. I want one that'll do anything. I want to be able to put something in there. So I start by creating a new instance, a new entity. Or, you know, what I'll end up doing is I'll go to the thing like whatever /UUID. It'll actually return a 404 that has payload in it that's like, here's a form to set up, you know, the thing. Actually, we'll see. No, it does work. I was going to say it doesn't work in Chrome, but it does work in Chrome. It works in Chrome if it's the thing, but like it'll just ignore it if you try to, if it 404 is like something that's been hooked from an include or something like that, it doesn't load that. I noticed that was an issue. That shouldn't do that. It should actually, even if it's a 404, if there's payload in there, it should actually return as far as I'm concerned. But it doesn't, which is annoying. It does in Firefox though, like it should. But, so yeah, imagine like I'm starting up, just like I want to create a new resource and it has nothing. It has no triple, it has no type. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to assert one or more types on it. So it'll be like this UUID RDF type something. And I'm going to create some triples of that, like some statements. Those are going to go into the graph, and then it's going to refresh, and then it'll be like, okay, this is a thing of type whatever. Now what? Well, I'm going to add some predicates. I'm going to add some properties. And then I'm going to want to know which properties am I allowed, RDF is open world, so allowed in scare quotes. But, you know, which properties are associated with this entity of one or more types. And one of the things that I got that was really interesting about working with RDF was discovering that like entities, resources can have more than one type. So like, whereas in your typical object-oriented whatever, like this is of type whatever, you know, so the kind of like the typing acts more like roles or aspects or whatever, like rather than classes, even though it is a type of class. But you can have something be two classes at the same time. They could be two disjoint classes at the same time. Like and it still works. And it makes sense. It's not like because yeah, it's basically what you're trying to say about it is you're trying to say like what elements should you be able to expect given that this thing has these types, and it can have more than one type. And I often do make things have more than one type, or I will make a subtype that coalesces two types together, which again, you don't worry about like diamond inheritance because this is data and not code. But anyway, so yeah, so my user story here is I visit a URL, like, actually the URL, it could be whatever, doesn't matter what it is. Let's say it's just a 404. I visit the URL, and the first thing that I do is I want to set a type for it because I want to say what kind of thing it is. I post that, it comes back. So I post that, it comes back. Now it's got the type information. Okay, cool. So then I say, okay, the front end is going to want to query the back end, like, all right, like what properties are allowed, or what properties have this type as a domain, have this class as a domain, or these classes could be multiple classes, right? And then I can get my list of properties, and then I can continue. With my properties, and the properties are gonna be like, okay, so what values are available to connect with these properties, and so on and so forth. And so that is, that's what I want to be able to do, but I want to be able to do that with the front end being like as dumb as possible, like as dumb as it can get away with. And so that's the purpose of these catalog resources, is so that the front end can just be dumb. And it doesn't need like 47 tons of JavaScript to function. It can just, it can use XSLT, which is 25 years old. That's not entirely fair. It's like 23 years old because I remember distinctly the first implementation of it was Microsoft IE 5.5. And it worked, but it didn't have the same namespace as the final one. So like you had to wait till IE6 to use it. But it absolutely worked. And I have shipped stuff with, I've been using XSLT consistently since 2001 because I distinctly remember using it on IE 5.5. Yeah, because it freaking rules. It sucks to type, but incapable of creating a syntax error, unless you've already got one, in which case it doesn't even run. And you only give it the information that it needs to do what it has to do. Like you have to explicitly give it information. Unlike, say, for example, like any of those template languages, like first of all, they chop up the markup. They're imperative. XLT is declarative. They chop up the markup. They like conceal syntax. Maybe not like React or whatever is probably not so much like that anymore, but like it's still like writing PHP. And it doesn't surprise me that came out of Facebook, which is like the biggest PHP shop in existence. Like they bent the reality to make PHP still relevant, literally with their whatever the hell their compiler was called. But you're still doing what's it called? You're still doing what they call a callback paradigm, whereas I'm trying to do like a filter transform paradigm. You create entire entities, and then you push them through filters. That's my modality, and that's not original to me. I didn't invent that. There was Apache Cocoon by Stefano Mazzocchi, Mazzocchi, whatever, Italian. I'm not good with Italian, but so there was Cocoon around 2001, but it was very wedded to XML, and whereas like I only treat XML as like a sure, you know, I don't care because I'm just generating it. I don't touch it by hand. I'm not a, what do you want to call it? Like a chauvinist. I mean, I'm a syntax agnostic. I think a lot of ink has been spilled about syntaxes that isn't necessary, especially if you can generate them. And you can transform them. You transform them, you can transform anything into anything else as long as you don't lose information. But I am digressing again, so let's start writing some frickin' code. Now I have to remember. Remember how I do it. Intertwingler handler. What do we got in here? File system generated. CIS. You know what? The transforms are probably better. Let's look at the raster images. Right. So you have the just like a regular vanilla handler will I was just holding that and I needed to sip it or put it down. So you can see I've got these UUIDs, which there's internal stuff that, again, that maps the durable UUIDs to the perishable URLs. But, and then I just have some code, some little bits of code that, that would dispatch it. Now, this is peculiar to the transforms. Actually, that's a good question. I don't know what we've got for... Let's just look at the transforms because that'll actually tell me right away if it's in the transform or in the handler. I think it's just in the transforms. Should I put it all the way at the bottom like a ding-a-ling? I gotta remember like default my font size because the one that oh yeah, here we go. Right. All right, peace. Thanks. Yeah, good luck with. I gave myself. Oh yeah, I don't even have like another hour to get done what I planned because I was yakking too much. Because I'm cutting myself off at 2 p.m. So. Maybe I should. Whatever. Let's just look at the generated. Is that it? That is it. That's all there is to that. That's awesome. I'm just wondering if I should like promote the URI map structure construct from the transforms to the. Maybe I should. Nah, you know what? We're just gonna freaking raw dog it right now. resources, meta catalog. Okay. I'm kind of wondering, like, summary. The other thing too is also like one of the things is like that I learned to do when doing this stuff was to do things with query parameters, and then you can curry that into a path segment. Or otherwise, you can define path segments in terms like individual path segments is just mapped to a thing with a query parameter attached to it. That is in the TFO ontology, transformation functions ontology. I feel like this is probably not necessary though. The other than question two is like, would it be useful to just like heavily parameterize this and then that is actually kind of tempting. Because again, like going back to these. So all classes, well, again, so I have all classes, all properties. All classes is this. It's a summary table. Now, if I were to parameterize that, if I was going to say like all classes, and let's just forget what its name is called, but like no, the all classes one would not. That's right. Okay, yeah. So all classes and all properties, those can be distinct. So what we'll do is we'll make our URI map. And we'll actually say XXX graduate construct from transforms to ordinary handlers. Even if you don't use it. And then we'll just like index. Well, actually, I feel like this is right. I feel good about this. Oops. And then like resources. Oh, not you. Insert UUID. Yeah. Yeah, I feel good about this. This is what I want. So those will map. Like, we'll just do that, but. And then, you know, one of the things that I have in mind to do for Intertwingler is to have a manifest, so every handler can, like, if you query it a certain way, every handler will tell you like all the URLs that it handles. But the index is just going to be like a freaking, just to be like, same thing but other way around. Meta catalog. What did I call that? Inventory. Let's call it inventory. Then the inventory can have its parameters. Yeah. Oh. And then there's also a me. And that is important because that's like an echo back. Like it echoes back stuff like remote user. Okay. So that's easy enough. Oh, I need to include. No. Some all mix up. Do I want to have it just be like params, or do I want to? Maybe I'll. This I'm not sure what I'm doing right here quite yet, other than to tell you that I do have a parameter registry and the parameters are managed. So like the actual slugs the parameters use, like so they have an unambiguous, same sort of deal, unambiguous UUID attached to them. Asserted. So we'll do this here. I could change my mind on this though. Just a minute. Actually, do we even do def handle? I don't even remember. Generated. Oops. Oh yeah, there is a. Because that would be like cool, like if I could just get the signature, like if I could just say like asserted nil, inferred nil, or actually they would be true. They would both be true, and then I would say nil property nil. Type or class, I don't know. I know class, it'd be very difficult to, instance variable get, well, whatever. Something like that. Oh, yes, and it would be like, no. Like instance of, I'll just call it domain and range. I mean, I think that would work. Because if all these things were nil, it should just return everything. Which is what we want. I am a staunch 78 character limit soup Nazi. Although people can say, oh, it's anachronistic, nobody's thing is 80 characters anymore. I like it for a reason. I like it for the reason that what it forces you to do. First of all, it doesn't wrap and look all messed up on a terminal, which should also be 80 characters because that gets all funny if it isn't. But I find what it does is it just makes stuff like sort of like it's another sort of dimension, or not dimension, but it's another sort of aspect of just disciplining yourself so that you don't make a freaking mess with the code. It's really what it comes down to. I've been like pushing my tongue into my jaw while I sleep because I used to clench my jaw. And then I trained myself to not do that instead. And what I have done is replace that behavior with is pushing my tongue into my jaw. So my whole face hurts. Anyway. So what we could do is we could actually pick that up and then I don't know if that's too punny, like if that's too, anyway, we'll worry about it. I wonder if these should have asserted and inferred on them as well. Because like what we want to show is we want to show like what's actually in there. So this actually also is going to be mostly static. So let's just do this. Content. I don't know how to do it. I don't remember how you do it. So long I've been generated one will tell me. No, it won't. Oh my God. Like right there. Document army. Def generate. That's weird. Oh no, okay. I was just trying to figure out what the hell was going on with that. I can nuke that actually, generate 0. Yeah, this is all junk. What does that look like right now? Let's stop that. Nope, get rid of that. Put a space there. Generate doc. Yes. Oh, wonderful. What does it look like again? It's like nothing to it. Sections. Yeah, we'll just. You know what? Since there is nobody watching now, I think I am going to go to the pool earlier than I was originally planning, and then come back and do another session. That's what I think I'm going to do. Because I feel okay about this, leaving it in this space right now. So yeah, I'm going to do